Welcome, 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 Bulls Reddit fans. I am the host of this little Reddit Ask Me Anything. I'm your host, Tony Gill, and along with me is the great Kendall Gill and Will Perdue. How you guys doing?
It's the great
Doing better
Tony
now
Gill.
that I know that I'm great. I didn't know that prior to you saying it. I'm feeling good.
We're gonna get into that a little bit, just to give you guys a heads up. So let's say we get right into it then.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so our first question from a Reddit listener is from L_Carson. He said, I'd love to know what you're the most surprised with in terms of the Bulls. Either good or bad, but he's assuming it's going to be good considering the season that they're having. So we can start off with Kendall.
Honestly, I'm not surprised at anything. I thought that this Bulls team was going to be solid when I saw them practice the first week in training camp. You know, I saw how they played defense. I saw how they played well together. So I fully expected this. Actually, I expected for them to have a better record than they do now. Yeah.
I'm surprised by their chemistry. I thought that, you know, the team looked really good on paper. They made some really valuable additions. I thought we're now going to really understand how good Vooch is playing with a good team. I know he struggled a little bit before he had to be inserted into the COVID protocol, but just with the chemistry they've shown on defense, at times, how well the offense has looked, you know, and the fact of how they came out of that 13-game swing, you know, going 8-5, especially without Vooch. I thought maybe they'd be lucky to, you know, to try to be like maybe one game above 500, might be below 500. But the fact they were able to come out 8-5 without Vooch on that West Coast swing really impressed me, and, you know, told us all just how good this team really can be.
Kendall, you said that you weren't really surprised by just how well that they're playing.
No.
And it started out before the season even got started. Mm-hmm. So what did you see specifically that, you know, caused you to be like, oh yeah, this is going to be the year?
Well, when I went to practice, I saw the defensive effort that they put out, and I saw how well these guys interchange parts with one another. Say, for instance, if they trapped someone, how they, on the backside of the defense, they were able to cover for one another. And also how well Caruso and Lonzo Ball played together. And then I saw Zach putting out extra energy on the defensive end as well. I didn't see that the first 2 or 3 years that Zach was here. But then I saw it. Also, one particular play, during their practice, I saw Lonzo, first of all, Zach rebound the basketball, give it to Lonzo Ball. Lonzo drive the ball down the middle, textbook fast break. Zach run to a spot, and then Lonzo give it right back to him. He knocked down the three. I said, these guys are already in sync already. You know, and then you have two big guards, 6'6". You know, you don't see backcourts that have a 6'6" point guard and a 6'6" off guard too often. You know, and like Will said, the chemistry as well. I just thought, and then, you know, I saw DeMar play the way that he was playing, and, you know, everybody was saying, oh, well, this is the worst free agent pickup and everything. I didn't see that in that practice. I saw everybody that was on point.
You know, and the thing I'm learning is I'm picking up bits and pieces about this team is how much time they actually spend together off the floor. You know, guys at dinner, picking each other's brain, becoming comfortable with each other, developing that bond that, to me, you start caring about one another more than just as a teammate, but as a person, and that even raises your level of awareness and care when you do play because of how hard you want to play for one another.
Man, speaking of that, Will, our next question is for you. So this question comes from Just Water. Water is fine. I guess it is fine, okay. Does this feel like the makings of a championship tier team? What do you have noticed on and off the court that might have sort of confirmed any suspicion that this team is on that trajectory?
I think it is, quite honestly, and because of what I've seen on the defensive end, the intensity of which they play with. Now, a lot of that, like Kendall talked about, has to do with Caruso and Lonzo Ball. I think, number two, you know, Zach playing on the Olympic team and realizing that, hey, if I really want to play on this team because there's so many gifted players out here, I really need to work on what I do defensively. He kind of gave up the scoring role to, he wasn't a stopper by any means, but you saw that effort in the Olympics. So you're like, now if that carries over to the Bulls, you're going to see significant improvement. And then you start talking about putting together all the pieces. I know some people will say, we're lacking scoring on the bench, but now Kobe's back. And it's going to take him a while to get his rhythm. He had the 14 against the Knicks, but to be consistent night in and night out, it's going to take some games. But it's just, as we've watched each game, you've watched this team progress, and you've seen them have bad quarters, whether it be against Portland or Denver, obviously against the Knicks. But you always feel like with their defense, when they really ramp it up and they stay focused, that will get them back into a game or help them maintain a lead or keep them in a game until the offense gets going. And that's one of the things that championship teams do, or championship caliber teams do, is have the ability to lean on their defense at times.
Kendall, championships, that's a big word.
Yeah.
Like from where they were last season, in the seasons before that, to having these expectations of we are playing for something big now. Is that too quick of a turnaround, or can it be done where you can switch that mentality from one year to the next?
I think it's already been switched. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say we have a championship mentality yet, but we are on our way there. You look at the way that this team has been turned over since last year. I think only Zach and Kobe are the remaining players that were on the team last year and then 2 years ago. So, anytime that you can change over your roster and then change the culture this quick, then that means that you're on your way to a championship type of ball club. Will knows this way more than I do because he won 4 championships in the league. So, he knows that you have to turn your culture around and get on the winning side of things, just like Arturis and Mark Eversley have done.
Well, Tony, you used the word trajectory, and I think they're on that trajectory. They've expedited the process by the quality of the players that they've brought in.
Yeah.
And you got to tip your cap to those guys for doing that. But now it's up to the players to take that next step. And if they pay attention, as well as they have played, they've shown at times their lack of experience in winning games. And when I say that, I mean Zach has never had a winning record as a player. He's won games, but since he's been in the NBA, he's never had a winning season, right? You saw what happened when they played against the Golden State Warriors. DeMar talked about, we played with intensity, and we stayed in the game in the first half, and then we basically lost it in the second half. That's a learning moment, because that right there was basically a playoff game with playoff atmosphere. You got to play 48 minutes. And I think that's where, when you take the latest game against the Pacers, you're going to have duds, but you start asking yourself, what have you learned to make sure that doesn't happen again?
This wouldn't be an AMA if the random fun question didn't sneak in there, or the fun comment in there. So this one's just a real quick one for Kendall. From Ass Kicking Chicken. Can you say DeBalzac live on TV again, please?
Hey, listen, I may say it every, yeah, I'll do it for you. Okay? It just has to be the right time, okay? Just stay tuned.
So, just mixing in just a little bit more basketball, and I think leaning into your, history. We're gonna go with Will a little bit right here. This is from Jump Blues 5678. Which coach got the most out of you and used you in the best way for you to personally succeed? Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson?
So I'll answer the question this way. Phil took the agitator role. Phil and I bumped heads a lot. We got into shouting matches during games, in his office. But he pushed my buttons, and I thought that worked to a certain extent. But I thought Pop was the one that got the most out of me, because, and it's not that I didn't want to play for Phil or play for my teammates, but it was aggravating. It was almost like, even when I played well, I'd go home and I'd be pissed off and not happy, and I struggled to see what he wanted in his eyes when I would talk to him all the time. Whereas I felt like from day one, when I got traded to San Antonio, I was on the same page with Pop. I can't sit here and explain why. It was just, I get traded, I fly down to San Antonio, we have the press conference, Pop pulls me in his office and says, listen, you have basically 30 days and 8 preseason games to prove to us what you can do. We're going to wipe the slate clean. We traded for you for a reason. I'm going to give you an opportunity. David Robinson's here. Obviously you're not going to start, but how valuable can you be to this team and what can you provide? And I had a great preseason. I had a great practice. And it was just, I always felt like he was in my corner and trying to get the best out of me. And I specifically remember the very first practice we had in training camp. We were down on the big man end of the floor with Dave Cowens doing these drills. And they had me guard Dave. And Dave brought it in, and I don't think he knew what to expect, and I blocked it. And Pop stopped practice, and he ran over, and he slapped me on the butt, and he goes, "That's what I'm talking about." And everybody was looking like, "What just happened?" And I was just like, this dude's, really into it. This is what's going on. This is how it's, going to go down. But let's be very clear, to make sure everybody's like, well, hold on a second. Bob Hill was the coach when I first got there. Greg Popovich was the general manager, but he was very hands-on, and he was at a lot of practices, and he was very vocal. But it was also just from day one being on the same page. And I got along great with Bob Hill as well. But it seemed like it was something that was meant to be, and it really helped my career and answered a lot of questions for me personally.
Kendall, you had a couple of stops. I wanted to make sure we got to you on that question as well. Which coach you think got the most out of you when you were in the league?
Alan Bristow, simply because he just gave me a lot of rope. When I was with Charlotte with Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning, Muggsy Bogues, Dale Curry, and all those guys, we had a really good team. My third year in the league, we took the New York Knicks, I believe it was to 6 games in the second round. That's really good for a young team. He gave me confidence, saying, look, you're one of the best young guards in the league. I want you to go out there and play like it. He used to tell me that all the time. And as a result, in my second year, I averaged about 20-something points a game. My third year, I averaged about 18 a game, along with Alonzo and Larry. And, he was the guy that gave me the confidence that a young player needs early in the backing. You remember how Jimmy Butler was here early in his career. Tom Thibodeau gave him confidence. I actually think Tom Thibodeau is a big reason why Jimmy Butler became Jimmy Butler, because he gave him a lot of minutes early, which gave him the confidence. He started off as a defensive player, then eventually his offense came along. That was the same way that Alan Bristow handled me.
For the average, basketball watcher, so much goes kind of unnoticed, especially with the success or the lack thereof of a incoming player or rookie or something like that. Like, how important is that for a player to have the right coach to unlock that? Because there's some spaces where it's like, oh man, fans will be like, oh wow, like he's a bust, or maybe it just wasn't the right situation for that player. So how important is that player-coach relationship, especially for a young player?
I mean, it's huge, and it's not just about player-coach; it's about player-organization. Mm-hmm. How many times have we seen guys get drafted and you're like, oh man, I don't like the fact that they went to that organization. They got drafted by that team. It's not a good setting. The roster's not good. And it's just drawing a blank, but the kid in Sacramento that's not even playing right now. He's
Marvin Bagley.
Marvin Bagley.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that kid's got a lot of skill.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason.
Look good in the Bulls uniform.
But, it hadn't worked out in Sacramento with any, things obviously haven't worked out with Walton. You just wish that maybe he would have gotten drafted by a different organization and things would have been different. But, to kind of take that full circle, the question that, you gave me, I always wonder, like, maybe if I had Popovich or maybe Bob Hill, who in my opinion were, a little more positive as far as the approach they take, instead of, me always butting heads with Doug Collins and Phil Jackson, maybe how things might have been different for me. But, I was fortunate enough that I played in the league long enough where everything worked out. But, now more so than like when I and Kendall played, if you get drafted in the first round, you're expected to have an impact immediately. And if you don't, I mean, people are quick to judge that that guy's done, write him off, you know, and it just could be because it's a bad. There's not a lot of chemistry between the player and the coach, or there's not a lot of chemistry between that particular player and his teammates in the organization. And they get drafted or after their first contract, when most people have written them off, you see them have success somewhere else. And it's like they fit in, but unfortunately it took 5 or 6 years because they were in the wrong spot.
All right, let's go on to our next question. This one is for both of you guys. This one goes 211 says, how aggressive do we need to be with trades? I've seen some people talking about trading Kobe or Pat for a veteran. Should we push further into a win now or let this team grow for a year or two before trying to peak?
I think you have to do both. I think you still have to try to win now, but you don't want to do it at the expense of your future either. You know, you want to make smart moves. I think that the Bulls definitely need a backup big to come in and you know, even though we couldn't have fit him in the salary cap, Tice was perfect for this current team. You know, unfortunately, he's down in Houston now where we're about to go and play them. But we need someone like that. You know, there's a couple players out there right now that I think could help this ball club right now. Hopefully, they're on the phones trying to acquire those players.
You know, the interesting thing is we always have to think about. To me, this isn't just about what's going on right here in this little bubble of Chicago. You're trying to send a message to every single player out there. Impending free agent, possible sign and trade, possible, you know, off-season acquisition. You're trying to prove to these guys about how this team is trying to grow and improve. I think the fact that we've gotten off to such a great start, not just a good start, a great start, that we've now expedited the process a little bit to where we're like, hey, maybe this is a 2 or 3 year project. I think we're now looking at, you know, are they championship caliber? No. Like you talked about, Tony, I think they're on that path. You know, you still have a bunch of guys that haven't even been in a single playoff game, much less a playoff series. They got a lot to learn, but we've seen now with the right moves how quickly you can improve by leaps and bounds. So now if you're out there, you know, looking at the trade wire, possibly making trades, you're sending a message to the guys currently on the team that, you know, yes, we've improved dramatically, but we're not standing pat. We're looking to move forward. We're looking to you know, to get better. Do you want to be a part of this? Continue to believe in us, but also sending messages to free agents and other players that, you know, this is what the Bulls now are all about. And you better jump on this train now before you get left behind.
Our next question comes from Inkara Messi 10, and this is for you, Kendall. Which current player in the NBA has the best chance of beating your old record for most steals in a game?
Well, CJ McCollum, seeing as he almost did it last year, he had 9 in the first half. And I'm going to tell you, I was sitting right here in the studio, okay? Right here in this exact same spot when someone came and said, hey, Kendall, CJ has 9 steals, and it was the first half. I actually went upstairs, went out in my car and started praying. Like, please don't let them break my record. You know, there's a lot of guys that say, you know, well, you know, when their records are broken, they like to say, well, you know, records, I mean to be broken. You know, I knew it was going to be broken someday. I'm not that way. I don't want it to be broken. You know, so unless it's my son or, you know, somebody like that, you know what I mean? But,
hey, maybe one day.
Yeah, but listen, I know one day somebody's going to get it, but I like to keep it as long as I can.
I mean, like, considering in today's, you know, style of play, like, defense really isn't. I mean, it's so much offense going on.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of, like, obviously Wilt's 100, you know, point record, that seems like it's not going to be touched. But
yeah,
I think that steals record, like, it just doesn't feel like somebody is going to be that dedicated on the defensive end and have enough time in a 48-minute span to actually get that in today's game.
You know, also too, I worry about players that could get close and they're on their home court, and then the statistician, you know, gives them one here, gives them 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you're almost close. You know, because those things happen. Yeah. We know that, right?
Just ask John Stockton.
Yeah, John Stockton, because sometimes, you know, when guys are close to triple doubles and things like that, you know, the stat guy, he'll give it to you. You know, he'll give you an assist here if you need an assist or something like that. You know, so even if it's a hockey assist, they'll give it to you. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, how many, in that game you had 11 steals, how many minutes did you play?
I think I played about 35 minutes. It was against the Miami Heat.
I think there's one guy possibly even on this roster, and Alex Caruso, that could beat that, but I just don't think he'll ever play enough minutes in a game.
Yeah, no, Caruso can't beat it. You know who can beat it? Who I think can beat it? And I thought about this the other night when I saw him play. LiAngelo Ball. I think he can. I said that kid scares me right there. You know, out of all the guys I see. But then look, I never thought a guy like T.J. McConnell could come close.
Yeah.
You know, so it might be somebody that you never expect, you know, to come close. I mean, shoot, you know, Sabonis might break it. I don't know.
He also asks, but a bit silly question, but as you are a boxer lover, do you think you will have a better chance? Who do you think in the NBA will have a better chance as a boxer that's on the current Bulls roster?
That's on the current Bulls roster. Wow, that's an interesting question. Javonte Green.
Oh, that's a good one.
He's Javonte Green by far because he's sneaky athletic, he's strong, he has the demeanor. A lot of boxing is about the attitude that you have. You know, in boxing, what boxing is can I impose my will on the other man and be successful? I think Javonte loves to impose his will on other men. By the way he takes the ball to the basket, the way he dunks it, and you know his demeanor after his dunks and everything. I think he could definitely be a boxer.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned Alex Caruso, and our next question comes from NBA Kefka. The Sixth Man of the Year award has historically gone to guys who are the best scorers off the bench. Would Alex Caruso have a genuine shot of getting it this year if he continues to be this lethal on defense?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he'll get a mention, he'll get a sniff, because he just doesn't score enough points. I think he would probably get more votes for Defensive Player of the Year because of how he plays than he would getting votes for Sixth Man of the Year.
I agree with that. I think you got to put the ball in the bucket to be Sixth Man of the Year. You know, that's you go back and you look at the Jamal Crawfords, the Lou Williams, all those guys that have done it several times. Those guys score the basketball. You know, and yes, I think that Caruso is a wonderful player, does great things on the defensive end, but he doesn't average that many points. Yeah.
Does he have a chance to make an all-defensive team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think he really does.
Yeah.
Because when you start doing, you know, when they talk about the all-defensive team and all this stuff, they start doing the per 48 numbers. That's eye-popping. So, you know, the question is, can he continue this throughout the whole season? You know, how many games will he miss with the bruised wrist? That always has an impact on what voters think. But just, you know, what he does from the deflections aspect to the steals, to the intensity of which he plays with, it's just, you know, he's like one of those guys we've always heard about and we watched him play, but now that we've seen him in person and he plays for the Bulls and we watch him every night, it's really impressive.
Now, this is a question that I cannot wait to get to. I stared at this question all night, and I cannot wait to get to it. And I always kind of prepped Kendall for it.
So, what is it? Is this from Tony Gill?
This is from Mr_Mojo_Rising. So this question says, Kendall, have you ever stolen anything from Janet Jackson's house?
No, I don't steal. I borrow for a couple of minutes, but I don't steal, okay? What I borrowed from Janet Jackson's house many moons ago, it's over 25 years ago, I put it back. So, you know, yeah, you know, I was hanging out with Janet and her crew for a little while, you know, but
sounds like somebody asking that question had a little inside information.
Yeah. Oh, but that's the story I have to tell after dark.
Well, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, pay
You got to pay for
directly for that.
Yeah, you got to pay for that one. You got to pay for it.
Well, who's the most, outside of, you know, Michael Ives, who's the most famous person that you've kind of hung out with or been around?
That's a good question. I mean, probably just athletes, you know, because it's I've been very fortunate to get to know Ryan Sandberg, mostly Chicago athletes, probably, the Big Hurt. I got to know him back in the day when he was playing. I used to go to a lot of the games and go in the locker room. I don't necessarily have a lot of famous movie stars that, I'm not Jimmy Butler and can talk about Mark Wahlberg and those type of relationships. I've always been kind of a quiet, keep to myself type of guy, so I didn't necessarily search out, those type of relationships. I do remember I had a good story, because obviously playing with Michael, whenever we played in LA, all the stars came out. I mean, it was just one of those things where while you're sitting on the bench, you're just kind of looking, we're talking amongst ourselves. And I just remember one time when we were running off the floor for something. I don't know why I did it, but even like Chris Rock was sitting right on the floor, perpendicular to the bench, and even he was looking at Michael like, wow. And I just went by and I knocked on his head, and he was like, what the? I was just laughing because it became something that I became accustomed to. But yet you saw these people that you admired on television and in the movies. All of a sudden, they're like little kids when they see Michael and they get up close, and he actually goes up and talks to them and has a conversation with them, and you're just looking at them, just like looking at him, like we look at all these other people. Like, if I ever met like Tom Hanks, I'd just be starstruck. But to see Jack Nicholson just talk to Michael and just have this big smile on his face, like, he's meeting somebody that he's admired his whole life because he's such a big, fan of basketball. You're just like, dude, that's Jack Nicholson looking at Michael like, he's the greatest ever. And it just, those type of things were always just so entertaining.
Will, this one's for you from a YMRJFTW. He says, a few years ago in AMA, you said that you didn't have a favorite pizza place. Surely by now you do. Has that been updated?
No, because I'm not a deep dish guy. I'm not. I'm more about the whole pie, the crust, the whole thing. Everybody's like, oh, deep dish. I'm just like, it's not me. It's just not. So I haven't found a place that, whenever somebody says, all right, man, let's go grab pizza, I'm like, we're going to this place, only this place, and this is where we go all the time. Usually my first requirement is it free. And if it's free, it probably tastes really good. But there hasn't honestly been a place here in Chicago yet where I've walked in and I've walked out and been like, that was the bomb. There's been a lot of places that I've been to, I'm like, that was really good. But it's not like I've found a pizza joint yet where I've had to be like, I gotta come back. I've been to some where they got great reviews and I went in and I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to come back because I must have missed something. I was just like, eh. So I'm just.
You're hearing a lot of feelings out here in Chicago with that one.
But listen,
I'll eat. From Florida though, man.
I know, but I'll eat deep dish, but I'll eat like one piece. I'll be like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. See, we were raised on it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I have a different experience than Will. Like I'm a Aurelio's guy. I was born. I was raised up on Aurelio's, Italian Fiesta, on the South Side.
Yes,
those are my guys. You know what I mean? So, when I go in, I'm like, damn, this is good. You know what I mean? Like I can't wait to get to Aurelio's on Sunday sometime. Even though we're Jets pizza sponsors. I ate you guys today. I ate Jets today though.
All right, a couple more here, guys, before we wrap this up. This one's for both of you guys. This is from Good and Salty. Speaking of pizza, do you think we will ever see D Rose in a Bulls uniform again?
I think that the window was open the last couple of years, but I think that window has closed. If you don't hear me talk about it on air, which I have done several times,
yes, he has.
Then you know that the window has closed because I no longer talk about it. And I think that Derek, he signed a deal with the New York Knicks for I believe it was 3 years.
Yeah.
He's comfortable out there now. He's comfortable under Tom Thibodeau. I think that he doesn't want to move anymore. So.
I agree. And I thought maybe this past summer there was a slim possibility because, listen, man, he's playing really well.
He is.
I know the Bulls just beat the Knicks, but who was in the game closing for the Knicks? D. Rose in a close game. That's just how well he's playing, and I think that it's just it pains me a little bit to say this because I wish he would have been in this I wish he would have been in this spot emotionally earlier in his career. But I think he's the happiest now that he's ever been as far as a player. Just as far as who Derrick Rose is, who does Derrick Rose stand for, how he's playing, the fact that he's been able to come back from numerous what people thought were career-ending injuries and just been able to kind of put, all the adversity he's faced behind him. And the fact that he just got engaged. And, I think he's just, I think it's kind of one of those things, I think he now sees his life has gone full circle and it's not just happy, I think he's ecstatic at where things are.
Do you think he ends up in that mental space that he's in if he doesn't go away? Kendall?
No. I think eventually he gets there because we all mature. We're young kids when we come out of college, or 1 year in college now. They come out, but you do eventually get there to that space, and I think that Derrick would have if he had stayed here in Chicago, yes, he would have got there. He's just that type of guy.
But I think he would have gotten there probably after his career because the thing I loved about him is he wanted to play here. He wanted to represent Chicago. He was a Chicago guy. But I also think that he would have tried and played so hard to try to bring this city another championship that it would have kind of limited, that happiness aspect because he would have been pushing so hard to make that happen. And every year, if they didn't make it to the championship, he would have considered that a failure. And I think that would have just been hard for him to live up to those expectations. But those are expectations that he put on himself. And, I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. I mean, there's plenty of guys that grew up here, played here, and have no interest playing for the Bulls because they don't want that pressure.
Retire his jersey in
Oh,
Chicago?
Yeah, most definitely. Anytime you win an MVP, you better get your jersey retired.
Okay, it's not on the list, but then that's where you start to ask your question. He just retired as a Bull. Do you retire Joe's jersey?
I think you retire that one as well. I mean, he's one of the most popular Bulls of all time.
Because I think you have to also, the one thing I've learned now is I think you have to me, the criteria is different for every organization. It's just not, a borderline for all 30 teams, every single player. I think there's so many criteria now that you have to take into consideration as far as, what did Derrick Rose mean to the Bulls organization? What did he mean to the city? The fact that he was able to wear that uniform, to get the MVP award, but just, I just remember going to those games before I started working here and just the electricity in the building because of Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
And where it started with him. I used to always say no. Oh, what, his numbers. And then I started thinking about as people continue to this day, just talk about the love for Derrick Rose and just that he was the one that brought him into the fold and got me going as a little kid. I think that it's now one of those things I think they have to seriously consider that because I think it would do wonders not only for the city but for the organization.
All right, the last question that we have here on this go-around on the Reddit Ask Me Anything, let's bring it back to the Bulls from Jack Vicini 2. Are you guys at all surprised at how fast Ayo has turned into a contributor? And what do you guys see his role being now that Kobe White is back? Kendall?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all. One, because he's had the same demeanor ever since he's been at Morgan Park High School. Steady, nothing excites him. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Also, he spent 3 years in college, and that says a lot because now, instead of the one and dones, this guy has matured physically, he's matured emotionally and mentally. He's not afraid of the moment. That's why you see him being able to contribute right away, to step up right away on the pro level. A lot of guys that come out their first year, they're not ready to emotionally accept going to the bench. you know, and coming off the bench. Io's All-American at Illinois. He was great in high school. He's used to being the man, but he humbled himself, asked questions of the veterans, learned quickly, and now look where he is. Will his role change with Kobe White coming? I don't think so. I think that Billy Donovan is going to continue to go to him because he trusts him, Will.
You know, I was, when they made the pick, I was a little apprehensive. But I remember that Kendall didn't second guess it. So I said, okay, so I'm a little suspect. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I'm going to take Kendall's word for it. You know, he's watching all the games. He's been following this kid. He knows all about him. He's high on him. Kendall was on this from day one. I said, so I'm going to take somebody whose opinion I respect, and I'm going to ride it. But I'm going to see what this kid does. And, you know, he didn't necessarily blow us away in summer league and in preseason, but when the lights came on and the regular season started, this kid was on it. Mm-hmm. And we've seen him get better and better. Now, not is he just a ball handler or a defender, he's a three-point shooter.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a small portion of the small sample size of the season. So I want to know what he's going to be like 20 games from now. What is he going to be like as we get towards the end of the season and get ready for the playoffs? I think that he's earned a spot in the rotation, and now he's forcing Billy to find a way to get him on the floor.
Yeah.
That's all we got, guys. The questions weren't that crazy, right?
No, they weren't.
No.
Maybe next time.
Thought they were going to be a little more risque.
Yeah.
The one risque question you got to pay to get the answer.
That's right, because I know you guys want to know what item I borrowed.
Yes. Yeah.
Borrow being the key word.
That's for the next one. Thank you guys for checking out this Bulls Reddit AMA. Ask Me Anything. For Kendall, for Will, I'm Tony Gill. Thanks a lot for joining us. We guys catch you next time.